Princess Thalira of the Veilthian Empire stood motionless before the viewport of her diplomatic vessel, violet eyes reflecting the blue-green jewel of Earth growing larger as they approached. Her silver-white hair hung in elaborate braids adorned with crystalline markers of her royal lineage, while her posture remained perfectly composed as it had been since her first consciousness training at age 3. "We approach Earth's diplomatic station, Your Highness," announced First Emissary Neville, his voice as flat and measured as was expected of all Veilthians. "Final preparations for planetary descent will commence in 17 minutes. Thalira inclined her head precisely 12 degrees, the exact angle of acknowledgement to a senior advisor. "The mission parameters remain clear, First Emissary. I shall represent our empire with the precision expected of my bloodline." What she didn't say, what no Veilthian would ever verbalize, was the strange fluctuation in her pulse when she gazed upon the alien planet. The Veilthian Empire had ruled a quarter of the known galaxy for 9,000 years through perfect control, logic, and the complete suppression of emotional responses. Emotions were primitive evolutionary remnants, best excised through rigorous mental discipline and biochemical regulation. Her purpose on Earth was straightforward, a 3-week cultural exchange to demonstrate Veilthian superiority before her arranged marriage to Warlord Krozek of the Dorisian hegemony. A union that would secure the Empire's eastern border for centuries to come. "Remember, Your Highness," Neville continued, "humans remain developmentally compromised by their emotional instability. You will observe behaviors that contradict all rational thought. This is to be expected from such a young species." "I have studied their psychological profiles extensively," Thalira replied. "Their diplomatic corps has been conditioned to minimize displays in our presence." What the records hadn't prepared her for was Lieutenant Marcus Valerian. The Earth Diplomatic Security Division had selected him as head of her protection detail, and from the moment he stepped forward in the reception chamber, Thalira felt an inexplicable disturbance in her normally perfect composure. "Princess Thalira," he said with a bow that was somehow both respectful and relaxed. His eyes, an unusual shade she later learned humans called hazel, met hers directly. "Lieutenant Marcus Valerian, I'll be overseeing your security during your stay on Earth." Unlike the stiff, uncomfortable officials around him, Marcus moved with unconscious grace and confidence. His shoulders were broad beneath his formal midnight blue uniform, and a slight smile played at the corner of his lips, an expression that seemed to communicate multiple meanings simultaneously, none of which she could properly categorize. "Lieutenant," she acknowledged with the precise formality her position demanded. "The Veilthian Empire acknowledges Earth's commitment to our diplomatic exchange." As they walked through the gleaming halls of Earth's global diplomatic center, Thalira maintained the expected distance from her human escort, yet found her attention repeatedly drawn to him. The way other humans responded to his presence, with subtle smiles or straightened postures, suggested complex social dynamics her briefing had not covered. "Your accommodations have been prepared according to Veilthian specifications," Marcus explained, leading her through security scanners. "Though I hope you'll forgive us if we've missed some cultural subtlety. Accommodation requirements are functional, not cultural." Thalira responded automatically, then paused as she noticed the slight crease between his eyebrows. This was a response indicating concern? Confusion? The nuance eluded her. "Nevertheless," Marcus continued, "we hope you'll be comfortable." His voice contained modulations that her Veilthian attendants never displayed, warmth and something indefinably inviting. The first 3 days proceeded according to schedule. Thalira attended meetings, presented Veilthian technological offerings, and analyzed Earth's political structures for weaknesses or advantages. Throughout it all, Lieutenant Valerian remained nearby, professional yet inexplicably different from her own people. On the 4th evening, an informal reception was held in the Diplomatic Center's observatory garden, a concession to Earth custom that Thalira endured with appropriate stoicism. She stood apart from the mingling humans, observing their incomprehensible laughter and animated conversations. "Not joining the festivities, Your Highness?" Marcus appeared beside her, offering a crystal glass of water. "Observation is more valuable than participation," she replied, accepting the drink with precisely measured movements. "Your species expends considerable energy on non-essential interactions." Marcus leaned against the garden railing, looking up at Earth's moon. Non-essential by whose measure? The question was unexpected. "By objective measure, Lieutenant. Communication without informational exchange serves no evolutionary purpose." His laugh caught her entirely off guard, a sound both musical and spontaneous. "Forgive me, princess, but for a supposedly advanced species, you've missed something fundamental about life." In any other context, she would have reported such disrespect immediately. Instead, she found herself asking, "Explain." Marcus gestured toward the gathering. "Look at Ambassador Chin and Director Alvarez over there. They're discussing their children's school performances. Objectively useless information exchange, right? But that conversation is strengthening their bond, which means next week when they negotiate the Southern Ocean shipping routes, they'll find common ground more easily." Thalira's perfect posture faltered slightly as she processed this. "You suggest emotional connection as a practical diplomatic strategy?" "I suggest it's the foundation of all meaningful exchange," he said, then pointed upward. "Look at that moon. What do you see?" "Earth's satellite. Mass approximately 7,342 times 10 to the power of 22 kilograms, diameter 3,474. 8 kilometers. Marcus smiled, a genuine expression that created unexpected warmth in his features. "I see the inspiration for thousands of poems, the guide for countless travelers, the dream that eventually led us to the stars. Same moon, different perspectives." Something unfamiliar stirred within the Lyra, a sensation her conditioning identified as dangerous. Her biomonitors would report this deviation if it continued. Yet she didn't step away. "Your perspective is inefficient," she said, but the words lacked her usual conviction. "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But I've never seen a Veilthian look at the moon the way you just did, like you were seeing it for the first time." The observation was too accurate. The Lyra felt her pulse accelerate by 6.3%, an unacceptable deviation. "I should retire for the evening, Lieutenant." "Of course." He straightened respectfully. "But if you'd like to continue this conversation sometime, the observatory dome has the best view of Earth's night sky. I'm often there during third shift when it's quiet." As the Lyra returned to her quarters, she ran the expected mental discipline protocols to suppress the strange sensations Marcus had awakened. Yet even as her conscious mind recited the precepts of logic, something deeper wondered what Earth's moon might look like from the observatory dome. Against all Veilthian teaching, against the biochemical suppressants in her system, against the destiny mapped for her since birth, the Lyra found herself calculating the exact time of third shift and wondering what other perspectives Lieutenant Marcus Valerian might share under Earth's night sky. 3 nights passed before Princess the Lyra found herself standing outside the observatory dome during third shift. She had fabricated a logical reason for her presence, a study of Earth's astronomical research methodologies, but the racing of her pulse betrayed the falsehood. The door slid open silently, revealing a darkened chamber illuminated only by the soft glow of holographic star charts and the natural light streaming through the transparent dome above. Lieutenant Valerian stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him as he gazed upward. "I wondered if you would come," he said without turning, somehow sensing her presence. "Research indicated this facility would provide superior data on Earth's astronomical capabilities," the Lyra replied, her voice maintaining its practiced evenness despite the unusual fluttering sensation in her abdomen. Marcus turned, and in the starlight, his features held a gentleness she had never observed in her species. "Is that the only reason?" The directness of his question violated every diplomatic protocol she had studied. Yet instead of offense, she felt something refreshing in his honesty. "No," she admitted, the word foreign on her tongue. "I wish to continue our conversation." His smile in response triggered an inexplicable warmth beneath her ribs. "Then let's talk. Not as a princess and a lieutenant, just as the Lyra and Marcus." Over the next 2 hours, the Lyra experienced the most authentic exchange of her existence. Marcus spoke of his childhood in the coastal megacity of New Seattle, of his parents who had been oceanic engineers, of his decision to join Earth's diplomatic corps after witnessing firsthand the power of cross-cultural understanding during the Martian independence crisis. "What of your childhood?" he asked as they sat side by side beneath the rotating galaxy map. "Veilthians do not conceptualize early development as humans do," she replied, but then hesitated, compelled by something deeper than protocol. "But I remember a garden, with crystalline flora that sang when stellar winds passed through them. Before full emotional suppression protocols, I found the sounds pleasing." Marcus didn't laugh or dismiss her halting confession. Instead, his eyes softened with understanding. "You miss it, that garden. Missing is an emotional response. I simply recall it with greater neural activation than other locations. But even as she spoke the rote denial, the Lyra recognized the falsehood. She did miss it. The realization was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. As the days passed, the Lyra found herself creating increasing opportunities to study human emotion through the perfect subject, Marcus. She requested his escort to art galleries, musical performances, and public gathering spaces, all under the pretense of cultural research. Each outing became a clandestine lesson in the emotional landscape her species had abandoned millennia ago. "What does this music make you feel?" she asked during a string quartet performance in Paris. Marcus closed his eyes, listening. "Longing. Like reaching for something just beyond your grasp. Beautiful but painful. Pain is considered a negative sensation. Why would humans cultivate it through art?" His eyes opened, meeting hers. "Some pain reminds us we're alive, the Lyra. Sometimes we need to feel the ache to appreciate the joy when it comes." Her biomonitors registered increasing anomalies as the days progressed. The emotional suppression implant at the base of her skull had begun issuing more frequent biochemical corrections, yet they seemed increasingly ineffective against the tide of sensations awakening within her. The crisis that changed everything came without warning. During a diplomatic reception at the North American Union headquarters, an extremist group opposed to alien presence on Earth breached security. As alarms blared and diplomats scattered, the Lyra found herself separated from her Veilthian contingent. A masked figure appeared from a service corridor, weapon raised toward her. Time seemed to slow as she calculated the statistical improbability of survival. Then Marcus was there, shoving her behind a marble column as energy fire scorched the wall where she had stood. "Stay down," he commanded, his body positioned protectively before hers as he returned fire. The skirmish ended in moments as security forces neutralized the threat, but something fundamental had shifted within the Lyra. She had witnessed not cold calculation but instantaneous, selfless action. Marcus had moved to protect her without hesitation, without analyzing risk percentages or diplomatic consequences. Later that night, after refusing the medical examination her Veilthian advisors insisted upon, the Lyra requested Marcus's presence in her private quarters, a breach of protocol that raised concerned murmurs among her entourage. "You could have been killed," she said the moment the door sealed behind him, her voice containing a tremor that would have horrified her instructors. "Part of the job," he replied with that small smile that now affected her breathing patterns. "No. The statistical approach would have been to neutralize the threat first. You placed yourself in the path of harm to ensure my safety." Her hands trembled slightly. "Why?" Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could detect the subtle scent of him, something clean and distinctly human. "You know why, the Lyra. I require you to verbalize it," she whispered, her perfect poise fracturing. "I need to understand." "Because I care for you," he said simply. "Not as a princess or a diplomatic assignment. As you." The words triggered something profound, a cascade of neurochemical responses that overwhelmed her suppression implant. "I wish to understand human emotion more completely," she said, her voice unsteady. "Not through observation. Through experience." Marcus's eyes widened slightly. "The Lyra, are you sure? Your people." "My people abandoned this part of existence eons ago. Perhaps they were wrong." She moved closer, uncertain yet determined. "Teach me." His hand rose slowly, giving her every opportunity to retreat, then gently cupped her cheek. The contact sent electricity through her skin, triggering responses her body had been engineered to suppress. "Like this?" he asked, his voice a whisper. "More," she breathed, the word emerging without conscious thought. When his lips met hers, the Lyra finally understood what all the human poetry and songs had tried to capture. The sensation was both overwhelming and insufficient, a spark igniting something primal and forgotten in her genetic memory. Her hands found their way to his shoulders, the solid warmth of him anchoring her as new sensations flooded her consciousness. The kiss deepened, her instincts awakening despite millennia of evolutionary suppression. His hands traced the curve of her spine with reverent care as they discovered each other. Every touch unleashed new cascades of feeling, desire, tenderness, hunger, and something deeper she couldn't yet name. They moved as if in a dance neither had practiced yet both somehow knew. Clothing was discarded, revealing the contrast between them, her skin with its subtle luminescence, his marked by the evidence of a life fully lived. When they finally came together on the sleeping platform, the Lyra experienced the full spectrum of sensory input her people had denied themselves, the profound connection of bodies and minds united in mutual discovery. Is this what it means to be human? She gasped as waves of pleasure unlike anything in her experience washed through her. It's what it means to be alive, Marcus answered, his eyes never leaving hers as they moved together. In those hours, the Lyra's perception of existence fundamentally shifted. The sensation of skin against skin, the synchronization of heartbeats, the sound of her name spoken with reverence rather than protocol, each experience rewrote her understanding of connection and purpose. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the darkness, the Lyra placed her palm over Marcus's heart, marveling at its steady rhythm. My people would call this madness, she whispered. And what do you call it? He asked, fingers gently tracing patterns on her shoulder. The emotional suppression implant at the base of her skull pulsed painfully, struggling against the neurochemical tide it could no longer contain. With sudden clarity, the Lyra reached back and pressed firmly against the device. A sharp click, a moment of searing pain, then blessed silence as the implant deactivated. Freedom, she answered, feeling tears. Her first, slipped down her cheeks. I call it freedom. Morning brought reality crashing back. Her biomonitors had alerted the Veilthian delegation to her implant's deactivation. First Emissary Neville and a medical team awaited outside her quarters, prepared to correct the malfunction and return her to proper Veilthian functioning. You must go, she told Marcus urgently as they dressed. They will declare you an inflammatory influence and revoke your security clearance. I'm not leaving you to face them alone, he insisted, taking her hands in his. You don't understand. In 2 days, the diplomatic shuttle from the Dorisian hegemony arrives. Warlord Krazek comes to finalize our union. The alliance must be. Do you want to marry him? Marcus interrupted, his gaze intense. The question struck her like physical force. In all her 27 years of existence, no one had ever asked what she wanted. Duty, protocol, empire, these were the only considerations that mattered. The Lyra faltered, then straightened her spine and embraced the new truth burning within her. No, I do not want that life. Not anymore. Then don't go back to it, Marcus said simply, as though the solution could really be so clear. When the Veilthian delegation demanded entry, the Lyra faced them with new resolve gleaming in her violet eyes. First Emissary Neville recoiled at the open emotion on her face. Your Highness, your suppression implant has malfunctioned. Our medical team will correct. No. The word hung in the air, unprecedented in its defiance. I have removed it intentionally. I will not have it reactivated. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Neville spoke, his tone flat, yet somehow conveying horror. This human has contaminated you with emotional instability. Guards will remove him while we commence purification protocols. You will not touch him, the Lyra commanded with an authority that transcended her royal status. And tomorrow, when I am scheduled to transmit my acceptance of the marriage alliance to the Dorisian hegemony, I will instead renounce it. Gasps, actual emotional responses, escaped several of her entourage at this heretical declaration. Your Highness, Neville's voice took on the slightest tremor. Such action would destabilize a vital strategic alliance. The Empire's security can be achieved without sacrificing my existence to a loveless political union, the Lyra finished, the word love sending fresh shock through the assembled Veilthians. I have experienced what my people surrendered millennia ago. I have tasted life as it was meant to be lived. She reached back and took Marcus's hand in hers. And I will not return to the cold silence of our ways. As the delegation withdrew to report this unprecedented development to the Empire, the Lyra turned to face Marcus, her newfound emotions radiating from her like light from a star. The consequences of this choice will be severe, she warned him. In all our recorded history, no royal has ever rejected their duty so completely. Marcus's fingers interlaced with hers. Then we'll make new history together. For the first time in her life, Princess the Lyra of the Veilthian Empire smiled without restraint, and the radiance of it transformed her from a creature of cold perfection to a being fully, gloriously alive. News of Princess the Lyra's rebellion spread through diplomatic channels with unprecedented speed. Within 24 hours, the Veilthian High Council had dispatched their most formidable enforcer, Commander Krell, head of the Imperial Guard and specialist in correcting deviations from Veilthian propriety. Your shuttle has been prepared for immediate departure, Your Highness, First Emissary Neville informed her, his voice once again devoid of all inflection after emergency recalibration of his own suppression implant. Commander Krell arrives within the solar day to escort you home for rehabilitation. The Lyra stood at the viewport of her diplomatic quarters, watching Earth's clouds swirl below. The beauty of it struck her anew, now that her senses were fully awakened. I will not be boarding any shuttle, First Emissary. It is not a request, Neville replied. The Veilthine neurological recalibration chamber has been prepared aboard the command vessel. You will be restored to proper function before facing the High Council. Proper function? The Lyra turned, her eyes flashing with an intensity that made several attendants step back. You mean stripped of everything that makes life worth experiencing? Reduced once again to a diplomatic asset without desire or will. Neville's face remained passive. Your recent contamination with human emotionality has compromised your perspective, Your Highness. These sensations you value are merely neurochemical imbalances, remnants of our primitive evolutionary past and obstacles to true rationality. Then why do I feel more clear-headed than I have in my entire existence? She stepped forward, noting with satisfaction how her Veilthine entourage subtly retreated from her emotional display. For the first time, I see our civilization clearly. We sacrificed our souls for efficiency. We extinguished our passion for control. The diplomatic channel chimed, interrupting their confrontation. The holographic display activated, revealing the stern features of Warlord Krozek of the Dorisian hegemony. His gray skin was lined with ceremonial battle scars, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he assessed the situation. Princess Thalira, his deep voice resonated through the chamber. Disturbing reports have reached me regarding your condition. I demand clarification before my arrival. The Lyra lifted her chin, meeting his gaze without the customary deference. The reports are accurate, Warlord Krozek. I am withdrawing from our arranged union. The alliance must be secured through alternative means. All four of the warlord's eyes widened in synchronized outrage. This is unprecedented. The marriage contract has been negotiated for 7 cycles. The ceremonial binding chambers have been constructed on my homeworld. I cannot enter a union that requires the sacrifice of my true self, the Lyra replied, surprising herself with the steady conviction in her voice. I have experienced connection that transcends political advantage. I have felt. She paused, savoring the word, love. The warlord's skin darkened with anger, a reaction visible even through the holographic projection. The humans have corrupted you. This is an act of biological warfare against our alliance. No one has corrupted me, the Lyra countered. I have been awakened to possibilities my people abandoned millennia ago. The choice is mine alone. The warlord's expression shifted to cold calculation. I see. First Emissary Neville, you will contain the princess and prepare her for extraction. If force becomes necessary, you are authorized to employ it. I will not be humiliated before the Galactic Assembly. The transmission ended abruptly. The Lyra turned to find her entourage moving to surround her, their postures shifting subtly to blocking formation. Please do not resist, Your Highness, Neville said, removing a neural suppression device from his uniform pocket. This temporary measure will ease your transport until proper rehabilitation can commence. Before they could advance, the chamber doors slid open. Lieutenant Marcus Valerian entered, accompanied by Earth's Chief Diplomatic Officer Helena Ortega and a contingent of security personnel. This is an internal Veilthine matter, Neville stated flatly. Earth has no jurisdiction. Actually, Officer Ortega stepped forward, her silver-streaked hair framing a face accustomed to navigating interstellar crises, according to Galactic Treaty Section 17, Paragraph 4. Any sentient being may request asylum from their government if they can demonstrate reasonable fear of physical or psychological harm. Marcus moved to Thalira's side, their hands finding each other instinctively. Princess Thalira has formally requested asylum, he confirmed, and Earth's diplomatic council has granted it pending review. Impossible, Neville's voice contained the barest hint of distress. The princess is essential to imperial security. Her marriage alliance is an arrangement I never consented to, the Lyra interrupted. I was bred and conditioned for it without consultation or choice. In the eyes of Earth law, such forced union would constitute a violation of sentient rights. A tense silence filled the chamber as the Veilthines processed this unexpected development. Finally, Neville spoke with cold precision. This action constitutes an act of aggression against the Veilthine Empire. Commander Krell's vessel carries sufficient firepower to reduce this diplomatic outpost to ash. Reconsider your position, Officer Ortega. The Earth diplomat remained unruffled. We are prepared to defend our sovereignty and our asylum provisions, First Emissary. But I would hope centuries of peaceful relations between our worlds would not be discarded over one individual's right to self-determination. This is not merely one individual, Neville countered. This is the Princess Royal of the Veilthian Empire, carrier of the imperial bloodline, and key to our alliance with the Dorisian hegemony. I am standing right here, the Lyra interjected sharply, and I am more than my genetic material or diplomatic value. She turned to Officer Ortega. I formally and publicly request asylum on Earth, on the grounds that forced return to the Empire would result in neurological manipulation equivalent to death of my true self. Ortega nodded solemnly, then activated her communication device. Security Protocol Omega. The princess is under Earth protection effective immediately. The diplomatic quarters transformed as hidden security measures activated, shield barriers materializing between the Earth and Veilthian contingents. This is your final opportunity to reconsider, Your Highness, Neville stated. Commander Krell will not be as accommodating as I have been. The Lyra felt Marcus's hand tighten around hers. She drew strength from the contact as she delivered her answer. My decision stands. The Veilthian delegation withdrew to their ship, leaving the Lyra in Earth's protective custody. The next 12 hours passed in a flurry of diplomatic communications and security preparations. Earth's orbital defense grid was placed on high alert as Commander Krell's warship entered the solar system. You understand what you're risking, don't you? Marcus asked as they stood together in the reinforced underground chamber where Earth's diplomatic team had relocated them. The Veilthian Empire doesn't surrender anything they consider their property. I was never truly alive until I met you, the Lyra replied, tracing the contours of his face with newfound tenderness. Even if these are my only days of real living, they are worth more than centuries of empty existence. That won't be necessary. Officer Ortega interrupted as she entered, her expression serious but not defeated. Commander Krell has arrived in orbit and demands to address you directly, Princess. The holographic projector hummed to life, revealing the imposing figure of Commander Krell. Unlike the other Veilthians the Lyra had known, Krell's face bore the faintest traces of expression, a result of his specialized training that allowed him limited emotional understanding to better hunt those who deviated from Veilthian norms. Princess the Lyra, his voice carried the weight of imperial authority. Your actions have created an interstellar incident of unprecedented magnitude. The Dorisian hegemony threatens war over this perceived insult. Then let them threaten, the Lyra responded, standing tall despite the gravity of his words. I will not sacrifice my existence for political convenience. You misunderstand. Krell's eyes narrowed slightly. I am not here merely to retrieve you. The High Council has declared you mentally compromised and therefore removed from the Imperial line. A cousin has already been selected to take your place in the marriage alliance. The news struck the Lyra with unexpected force. All her life, her value had been tied to her royal position, her genetic legacy the only reason for her existence. To be so easily replaced. Then why pursue me at all? She asked, genuine confusion coloring her voice. Because your condition represents a dangerous contagion, Krell replied. Already, rumors spread through the younger members of our society. Questions are being asked about the efficiency of emotional suppression. Your public defiance cannot be tolerated. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself partially between the Lyra and the projection. She has been granted asylum. Any attempt to forcibly remove her will be considered an act of war against Earth. Krell's eyes shifted to Marcus, studying him with clinical detachment. Lieutenant Valerian. Our intelligence suggests you are the primary source of the princess's contamination. His gaze returned to the Lyra. The Empire offers terms. You will publicly renounce your asylum request and return voluntarily for rehabilitation. In exchange, Earth will face no retribution, and this human will be spared. The implied threat hung heavy in the air. The Lyra felt fear, a new emotion, grip her heart at the thought of harm coming to Marcus. Don't even consider it, Marcus whispered, reading her expression. He's bluffing. Earth won't surrender you. Officer Ortega stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in her measured response. Commander Krell, threats against Earth citizens violate multiple sections of the Galactic Charter. Additionally, forced neurological modification of an asylum seeker would constitute a war crime under interstellar law. Laws created by emotional species to protect weakness, Krell dismissed. The Veilthian Empire operated before your charter existed and will continue long after it crumbles. Delira felt something crystallize within her, a clarity born of her newly awakened emotional state rather than hindered by it. She moved forward, facing Krell's projection directly. "Commander, I offer alternative terms," she stated firmly. "I will address the Galactic Assembly." Krell's expression shifted subtly, the closest a high-ranking Veilthian could come to surprise. "Explain." "I will speak before the full assembly about my experience, about what our species has lost in its pursuit of perfect logic. Not as a defector, but as someone who has glimpsed what we once were." "To what purpose?" Krell demanded. "To begin a conversation that is millennia overdue," Delira replied. "Our civilization has reached the limits of its evolution because we severed ourselves from our emotional course. We do not grow or create or truly connect. We merely exist and expand." A tense silence followed as Krell appeared to consider her proposal. Finally, he spoke. "The High Council will never agree to such terms. Your words would contaminate others. Then perhaps our way of life deserves to be challenged," Delira countered. "A truly superior civilization should withstand questions, Commander. Or are we more fragile than we claim?" The subtle flicker in Krell's eyes told her she had struck a nerve, one the commander likely didn't even recognize within himself. "I will convey your proposal," he finally stated. "But make no mistake, if the Council rejects it, I will execute my original orders regardless of Earth's protection." The transmission ended, leaving Delira, Marcus, and Officer Ortega in tense silence. "That was unexpected," Ortega admitted. "You're proposing to become an ambassador for emotional awareness among your people?" "I'm proposing to tell the truth," Delira replied simply, turning to face Marcus. "But I need to know, if I pursue this path, it may be years before we can truly be together." "The politics alone." Marcus took both her hands in his eyes reflecting a depth of feeling that still amazed her. "Some things are worth waiting for." 3 days later, standing before the combined diplomatic corps of Earth and representatives from 17 galactic governments, Delira received the High Council's response. They would permit her address to the Galactic Assembly under strict conditions. "They fear your words," Marcus observed as they stood together on the observation deck the night before her departure. Earth's moon hung full and luminous above them, the same moon that had witnessed the beginning of their improbable connection. "They should," Delira replied, her head resting against his shoulder. "Words born from genuine emotion hold power my people have forgotten." "When will I see you again?" he asked, his voice betraying the pain of their imminent separation. Delira turned in his arms, lifting her face to his. "I cannot say with certainty, but I will return to Earth to you. What we've discovered together is too precious to abandon." Their kiss held both promise and farewell, sweet yet tinged with the ache of separation. As their lips parted, Delira pressed her forehead to his. "I never imagined when I arrived that I would leave transformed," she whispered. "You showed me what it means to truly live, Marcus Valerian. Now I must show others." The following morning, as Delira boarded the neutral diplomatic vessel that would transport her to the Galactic Assembly, she paused at the threshold. Behind her stood Marcus and the Earth delegation. Before her lay an uncertain future, as neither fully Veilthian nor human, but something new. Delira touched her fingers to her lips, then extended her hand toward him in a gesture that would have scandalized her people mere weeks ago. The smile that illuminated her face carried all the emotion her species had abandoned, and all the hope for what they might reclaim. "I carry your heart with me," she replied, words from a human poem he had shared with her. "I am never without it." As the ship's doors closed between them, Delira of the Veilthian Empire, now ambassador of a revolution of feeling, faced forward. Her path would not be easy, standing between worlds, challenging millennia of established order. But for the first time in her existence, she moved toward the future not as a duty-bound princess, but as a woman fully awakened to her own power. And somewhere in the stars ahead, beyond duty and protocol, beyond the cold certainties of her upbringing, lay the promise of return to Earth, to Marcus, to the passion that had transformed her from a diplomatic asset into a being capable of true love. The ship lifted off, carrying her away from Earth but not from the truth she had discovered there. Some emotions were worth challenging an empire for.